Are you a school leader striving for excellence? Do you crave actionable strategies and fresh perspectives to navigate the challenges of education today? Get ready to take charge. This is Control+Shift+Lead, giving you something to control, something to shift your thinking, and something concrete to help you lead your school. With Jim Wichman of Inspired Edification and Adam Bush of AWB Education. Your journey to empowered leadership starts now.
All right, welcome back to Control+Shift+Lead. Here we go. We're into the month of September, Jim, and we're right back at it. Weather's turning a little bit. It's starting to get a little cooler here in the old great state of Iowa, and we got kids back. This week, we've had kids right back in, and holy cow, here we go. I kind of forgot about those first few days. Been a while.
Were you pretty tired?
Yeah, the very first day getting home, I just crashed. My wife looked at me, she's like, "Are you okay?" Like, "Yeah, I'm okay." Kind of forgot about this part.
When we think about it, we think about how tired our kids are, but man, it's the staff is tired too.
They're very tired. Yeah, very tired. The way our calendar works this year too, most of the schools in Iowa started school on a Monday, and people might think we're a little weak, but typically we try to start like on a Wednesday, kind of, go into it for a few days. And oh no, we're all at it, all 5 days right out of the gates this week. That's been trying for teachers for sure.
I have heard a lot of my former colleagues and your colleagues talk about, I sure do like the Wednesday starts. It gives us 3 days and everybody can sleep for a couple of days. And then we have a full week and then we have the 3-day weekend. So,
yep. Yeah, no, that's good. How about you? What have you been up to? That's really been me the last week or 2 weeks here now with staff and students back, and we're jumping straight forward. How about you? What you been up to?
Well, I've had the opportunity, blessed to be in Louisiana and West Virginia mostly.
Mm-hmm.
Do a lot of the opening keynote speaking or convocations with a lot of some amazing people. I mean, I was really deep in Louisiana and it was just amazing. Actually, there's a town right next to Louisiana, the town I was in, Jennings. The town is Iowa. So Iowa,
Really?
Louisiana. They pronounce it Iowa, which is probably closer to the Iowa and Native Americans.
Yeah.
Then West Virginia, if you have never been, is one of the most beautiful states I've ever been to.
Where at
Especially
in
in
West
the morning.
Virginia were you? Like where general area of the state? Do you remember?
Yeah, all over. So basically,
Okay.
south of Morgantown for 2 or 3 days. And then I slipped over to the Ohio border at Jackson County. And then back on the other side, southern. So it's like borders Virginia. So I kind of like zigzagged through the state. And one thing is for certain, there is not one straight road. Some facts I learned. It's the only state that has 100% of the state is in the mountains. That's where the first Civil War happened. I was in that town, the Philippi, West Virginia.
Yeah.
The people are just amazing, though. Here's another fact. I see a lot of cemeteries on lands, like they're family cemeteries.
Yeah. Okay.
So they explained to me that they don't have a lot there in West Virginia, but what they do have is land, and land very important. So it just gets passed down generation to generation. So people already know kind of where they'll be living in the future, which is it's kind of cool.
Yeah, that is interesting. That's cool.
So back to the cemeteries on the land, I learned that kind of like rattles me, like, what happens if you move? Well, they don't move, or they'll pass the land down.
Passes down.
Except I was golfing there. I got an opportunity to golf in this mountain, and on hole 14, there's a cemetery, family cemetery. So sadly, the people had to sell their land.
Oh, that's too bad.
So paid my respects. I mean, they said the headstones were like 1800s, 1700s.
That's cool.
So it's significantly long ago. And then if you like flash back, like, man, what was that land like? What did it look like? And so forth. So it was pretty cool. Again, the people are amazing and just the way that they received the message and the value that they have as educators and the dire need that we have to celebrate each other. And if we don't celebrate each other, no one will. It really is. Right. It really is about, we have to lean in as educators and celebrate the little things because we matter. And that's one of the things that I really walked away from West Virginia feeling accomplished. And I really appreciate the gratitude that they reached back out. I mean, Jackson County are just like so full of energy. Barber
Mhm.
County, they so grateful. They came up to me numerous times afterwards. In fact, the instructional coach just bought me a Dairy King ice cream treat, which
Dairy
is cool.
King. Okay.
Harrison County, the people just rolled with it. The middle school, it was just wonderful. And then it ended with my tour in West Virginia ended with Monroe County, where, man, it got pretty emotional in a good way, where people were just really grateful and just leaning into each other. So it left me kind of like a little emotional. So a different kind of exhausting that you had, but it's also self-fulfilling where you're still feeling like you're making a difference with that. So I
I was I
appreciate
was
that. Yeah.
following you along on your Instagram and everything else. I'm not gonna lie, I was a little jealous. There were some really neat pictures there. You can see the people were really engaged in the work you're doing. That was awesome.
Yeah. Stepping in this month is really going, the leadership coaching really kicks in, and I'll be in, I don't know, I think it's 6 different states in this month, and just really some really neat people that I love that we reach out, and administrators don't really get a ton of support when it comes to individual support. It's usually
Very
group
true.
or, call me if you need me. People
Yeah.
don't really know. So when
Yeah.
you have a coach and I get to be that person for people, says that there is a need to lean into our administrators, and we got to keep them in the profession. That's for sure.
Yeah. That's absolutely for sure. Well, I'll tell you what, we have kind of a surprise today. So threw out a question for some mailbag question, or threw out a request.
Invitation.
Here we go. Invitation. I'll spit that out eventually here. Threw out an invitation to see if anybody had any mailbag questions for us to talk about. And we got two. We got two already. We just threw that thing out there. So thank you to our listeners out there that's right, that already coming back with some ideas for us, which is awesome. So when we get back from our commercial break, we're going to go right into our control portion of our podcast. And we are going to start with our first mailbag question. So stay tuned. We'll be right back after this.
Where is your kid headed after high school? We are from Carpool to College, 2 accomplished educators, college and career consultants, and parents who guide families through the entire journey, from freshman year planning to senior year success. Subscribe wherever you get your podcasts.
All right, welcome back again to Control+Shift+Lead. A quick reminder to everybody, we always do 3 things in every show. We are going to talk about something that you as an educator can control, something that is going to help shift our thinking, and something that we can use to help lead. Now, you notice I said this time, Jim, educator, didn't just say leader, because the more you and I have talked about this and the feedback that we've gotten, it's really obvious to me that it doesn't matter what role you're in within a school district. All 3 of these things can matter to you, and they certainly can
Yep.
help you in your work of getting better. And a perfect example is our first mailbag question that we're going to talk about here comes from a teacher. This is from Noah out of Colorado. And Noah says, I am a new teacher and often feel like my ideas aren't taken seriously in department meetings. My department head is great, but I think they unintentionally overlook my contributions. Do you have any advice on how to effectively voice my ideas about new teaching methods or classroom technology and ensure they're heard without sounding like I'm challenging the established curriculum? Again, Noah from Colorado. Noah, that is an amazing question. That's a really good
Yeah,
one.
I love the fact that he's like, I don't think this is intentional. I don't think there's a
Yeah.
malice to it. It is
Yeah.
like, so how do I do this? How do I get into it? And
Yeah.
Noah is got the same question going as, I don't know, probably every other first year
Exactly.
teacher.
Exactly. And we've all been there. We've all been there. I mean, the technology may have changed a little bit for what we're talking about for you and me compared to Noah here, but yeah, we've all been in that boat. So, Jim, first glance, how do you answer that question? What would you start?
Well, the first thing I look at is, again, applauding Noah for, seeing that, looking through the eyes of others. And I think that phrase, it's one of Jimmy Casas's premises from his book Recalibrate, and it's looking through the eyes of others, and it's really kind of just, so what do I know? So the first thing is, when we're in the control that we talk about, is controlling what you can do. And so the first thing is continue to teach the way you are,
Mm-hmm.
listen to the ideas of the others.
Mm-hmm.
And if those ideas aren't being heard, or you're not maybe being asked, about what those ideas are in the group meetings, it's okay. And there's a couple of reasons that are probably for that. So I would highly encourage you to, Noah and everybody else that has that, is to set up a meeting with one of those teachers. So it's like a one-on-one situation, and not as a challenging. It's just like, how do I hear these ideas. I would like to share my ideas, but I don't know if people are hearing them or even wanting to hear them. And then I also think about now looking through the other lens, and you just got done, saying we've all been there.
Yeah. Every one
So
of
the
us.
last thing we want to do is overload the new teachers.
Yes. Yeah. And I think sometimes too, like, I don't know here if Noah means new teacher, new to the profession, could also just be new to this school. That's still a new teacher. It's still a new team dynamic, and how all of those personalities will work together. And you have to take time to build that trust, so you have the opportunity to have real conversations about how we can move forward and how we can do that. We all know that when things get tough, everybody reverts back to what they're used to, what they're comfortable with, versus the challenge of something new. It does take a little bit of time to get to that.
So one thing I want to make sure we're also clear on, districts hire new staff members so they could be more like the new staff members, not vice versa. We don't want people to come in and do everything what we're doing, do just what we've already been doing. We want those new ideas because we have to continually evolve in education. If we stay stagnant, our students are I'm going to guarantee that in every school district, our students are telling us they need something different based upon behavior data, attendance data, and academic data.
Great point.
So we need to be evolving. And the other part of, if I've been teaching a certain process or method, I may not know. And then it's also becomes a little scary to, what does that look like? So I'm going to go back to, and Noah and everybody else like that, is control what you can. And that is set up those individual meetings just to work through and build a trust with them, that you're not trying to be malice. It's just, how do I get this? Because I need ideas too. And we want to have that give and take mold, because it's really about the students as they're coming in with that.
I like how you said have those meetings. Sorry to interrupt you right there, Jim, but I like how you said have those meetings, because I think too often we let that go too long. We just assume it will happen. And many times, and Noah even says it in his email here, doesn't think it's intentional. Brene Brown, clear as kind, right? We got to be clear. We got to take the time to just start that relationship, start that conversation. Otherwise, all we're doing is wasting time waiting for something to happen that we need to do. We need to go and have that conversation.
So what we need to have is also our energy is going to be at top notch. And if we have that undercurrent of doubt or wonder or whatever the case is, that's going to be pulling our energy, and we need it for our students and so forth. So it's really just like leaning in, having that. Now, with that said, I also heavily believe in the DISC profile, personality profile.
As do I.
You knew it was going to come up.
Yeah, I did. But
as a principal,
right? Yeah.
As a principal, I leaned into it with the staff, and then now as a coach or workshop person, I leaned into it as well. And that is, first of all, we got to know who we are and how we communicate. There's a lot of different ways you can personality profiles or whatever the case is, but the DISC gives us like 4 simple ways. And you have to know who you are and what you're about first. And then the other 3 is, how do I speak the different languages there? Because we tend to hear and understand better, comprehend better in our own language. So if someone's going to, great example is, Adam, you and I are opposite ends of the spectrum, but it works because we lean in and we value the expertise, or what I would call the superpower. And so I think if I'm Noah, I'm also going to be like, okay, what is this DISC profile? What does this actually mean? And then I probably would be leaning into something like that. I think
I wonder if
go ahead.
I was going to say, if their school district doesn't do, and a lot of school districts don't, a lot of them do, or a version of this personality profile piece, I wonder if that would be something where, like, hey, this might be something. There's a lot of free versions out there. They're not nearly as in-depth as some of the stuff that you work with, but at least give you a start, to give you that start of that conversation. And anytime we have a new team, we need to take the time to really talk about how we operate as a team. It's not just that easy of putting 4 or 5 educators in a room together and say, go. It's not that simple. We have to be intentional. Dynamics matter.
Yep. We have to be intentional with that. And I think about, Elaine Aguilar has something in one of her books. The Art of Coaching Teams is one of the things that she's got there. You're right about the DISC profile. What I'm talking about is actually free. In fact, if listeners wanted to reach out to me directly, I'll connect you and I'll give you slides from my presentation, some of my training. So because it's so valuable.
It
I mean,
is.
our purpose is to support educators. So just reach out and I'll take care of you and all that. That's for sure. But yeah, it's just that it's time is also something that patience maybe is something that we have to lean into. So it's the control what you can. And that is keep working, doing what you're doing, but be intentional with that meeting. And like Adam says, we got to be clear. We can't assume that they're going to figure it out. The other teachers, whatever the case is. And the reason why I say in a one-to-one conversation, because people are pretty much, it's a little less guarded on that.
Mm-hmm.
And then if I really wanted to give some advice, I would advise Noah to have that conversation in the other teacher's room. So it's in their safe place.
Yeah.
They're not, it just keeps it like light.
Yep.
Because that's what we're really talking about. And Noah said it himself. I don't believe it's intentional, but how do I?
Yeah, don't have to challenge this or anything like that. It's just it's time to have the conversation. It's time to just be open and honest with it. I think the old saying I heard from somebody is be professionally persistent in that conversation or in that challenge. That's a good way to do it. Well, thanks, Noah. We appreciate that question. That was a wonderful question. Certainly something that you can control.
I'm hoping to be out there in the Denver area, I think later in October or something like that. So Noah can reach out, Noah.
Yeah, that's right. I should you get your tour, the Jim Wichman tour out there so we know where to stop. That's perfect.
Yeah, right. Thanks for staying with us. I'm Jim Wichman. I'm here with Adam Bush in our Control+Shift+Lead episode. We've been covering a lot of ground for new staff and about what it's like to, what we can control with how we navigate certain things and the value and the importance of not letting things fester and creating an undercurrent. Leaning into it, Brene Brown, clear as kind of concept. We're going to take the show a little further and look at our shift and look a little deeper on what are some practices that we might have in place that we might need to shift a little bit to change a direction, evolve to a different direction, or be more intentional. So Adam, you've been in schools the first few weeks of school. I guess this is the first week in Iowa. Have you been?
Yep.
You had a chance to get into school buildings so far?
I have. One that I lead. Part of my roles, I do lead one's kind of a small, program. It's been good to see those kids coming back. I've made it to every school so far.
Wonderful.
Which has been awesome. Yeah, and it's great. Those first few days, you and I both spent a lot of time either middle school or secondary. I spent a lot of time in upper secondary. So I'm not going to say that elementary kiddos are, the thing I'm most used to dealing with. I'll tell you what, I just love them with their excitement. And one of the elementary buildings, I was there as buses were coming to let kids out for the day. It was first day of school, and some little guy comes running by and like, "Hey, man, I was first day of school," and he looks right at me, 2 thumbs up, and goes, "It was awesome."
See, that's just praise. I love that.
It was just great. I went and found principal real quick, said, "Hey, at least there's one kid right there that is super excited about coming back tomorrow." Now, he might have been a kindergartner, so he might not realize like he has to come back every day now.
Every single day. Hey, here's the other thing. If it was a kindergartner, they were awake because they get really exhausted through the day. It's been a little short stint as an elementary principal. What I see is there's tons of energy from the excitement from the students and the staff at the elementary level. Tons of worry for parents. And we got to lean into it. So your little kid, he's going to go home and he's going to do the same thing to the parent. And now what's that parent going to say to everybody else? This is just exactly what you said.
Exactly.
We get to the middle school. We got that worry on their kid's face. At the end of the day, if we can get them doing that, says a lot about our staff and where our staff is pouring into the people and seeing the value of that.
Well, I just think it showed that this building, and I think all of our buildings, honestly, I saw a lot of things just like that everywhere that I was going. And I think it just showed that power of like the planning that they had put together. We had a lot of PD days this year. The way our calendar worked, we had a lot of days to get ready to go. But they had a plan, and you could see that it was rolling out. They had, that first day was successful. It was really successful in a lot of our buildings, and certainly something to be proud of.
I think when we start talking about the planning of that, which a lot of parents don't understand, is the planning for those days didn't start in August. It didn't start in July, and it didn't start in June.
Yep.
That started in April and May as they were trying to wrap up one school, the planning of what that could look like
Mm-hmm.
when the kids would come by. I mean, I always, at the school I was at, we were very intentional with that first day.
Mm-hmm.
Well, actually, in the planning of making that transition started for me, it was for our school, it started in February when I would go to the schools and sit with
Sure.
their students, sit with those teachers, because those teachers were going to be the ambassadors come parent teacher conference. I needed them speaking to on our behalf.
Mm-hmm.
And we created a solid partnership between the 5th grade teachers and then, administration at the middle school
Good.
so that they don't go into the big scary place.
Yeah.
It was a
That's right.
transition that started there. They knew the principal. They went home and talked to the principal. They went home and talked about the principal.
Talked about.
They
Yep.
replied to the 3 rules I gave them about how to be prepared for a middle school, which was finish strong. And they heard me endorse the teacher. The
Mhm.
second one was wear deodorant, which that got
Mhm.
a lot of chuckles along that and a lot of praises from parents and teachers. And the third is know your advisory teacher, your homeroom teacher, because when they came in, it wasn't go find your class. It was, we're going to come to you and we're going to take you to your class and we're going to teach you how to be a middle school student here. So you didn't have to worry about things. Mom and
That's right.
dad didn't have to worry about, can the kid open the locker or not? Nobody had to worry about getting lost or what lunch looks. We taught them that. We were intentional with that planning, like you
Yeah.
said. And I think about whatever happened at that elementary school, the planning was very intentional with that. And kids got a common experience using common language. There's no doubt about that. And in any of those, I think you have 10 schools in your district?
Yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah.
Pretty close.
Yes. 10 buildings. Got 10 buildings with
buildings.
our programs, everything else. Yeah. So
Yeah.
no,
Yeah.
it's got a lot going on there. But it's interesting though, you talk about that planning piece. And I know, as we were chatting before, I think you were out west, California, someplace that we're
California.
talking
Yep.
about that planning.
Yep.
Share a little bit of that, because I think that what you had kind of talked about and what you learned with that crew can really apply to how we can shift moving forward. Because most of our school districts, they're either starting right about now. Of course, we have 12-month calendars, but a lot of school districts are going to start in these kind of this 3-week window here or so, where most school districts in the United States are going to get started up. And I think something you were sharing could be something we should be prepared for as we try to shift how we do things to be more successful.
So when I think about school administration or when we're kind of welcoming kids, everybody's being very intentional with those 2 days, those first 2 weeks, whatever it is. Our words,
Yep.
our actions are solidly intentional. We want to be, as we've talked about with our control portion, clear as kind. Then we talk about, well, we probably need to do something in January to keep it alive.
Yeah.
Like kind of like a booster,
Mhm.
a halftime, or whatever you want to call that. But we forget about the months of September, October, and then November,
Yeah.
maybe even December. We kind of forget about that. And I think of some of the schools I had worked with in Virginia, they were jokingly calling November no school November
Yeah.
because of the disruptions that they have within that,
Yeah.
with holidays and breaks and so forth. So when I was
Probably
talking
some
to
sort of
California,
a testing window or something in
testing
there
window was
too.
in there.
Yeah.
So I was talking to the school in California. There was a group of them. They were going through and talking about how the day started. And one of them said, "I know it's the first 2 weeks, so the honeymoon's going to be over." And
Mhm.
I've heard that before. So it wasn't just the California, but I heard that before. And it got me thinking about, well, that's true. A lot of us say that, but what do we do about it? We sit there and absorb the punishment or whatever the case is, where there comes consequences that come with it. Instead of, we need to be planning of with as a whole school, what does it look like here? What does it look like here? And I know that
Mhm.
there's programs out there or PBIS, if some people lean into the concept of that, or Leader in Me might be another thing.
Yep.
There's something intentional. And if we want to keep it alive and it's how we operate, then we have to be really intentional with it. Just like we're planning for the first day of school, we need to be planning for the rest of those middle months that go along with that.
That's the shift. That's it right there. Because, and I'm really guilty of that too. There's some times where, okay, finally we got that off. Okay, we're done.
Feels good. Feels good.
Yeah, we'll check on it in January, like you said. But you're right. I mean, that piece where, I think we have to plan to be in that moment all the time. We have to plan that way. We've got to be there rather than just wait and see what happens. We do. That's part of that planning process to make sure that we are intentional throughout that rollout, and then check along with that. My My boss, Superintendent, give her credit, Superintendent Nikki Rorta, Dr. Nikki Rorta at Johnston. She always says, measure, monitor, adjust. That's her 3 favorite words. We're going to measure, monitor, adjust. And sometimes we forget that when it comes to these initiatives too. It's not just a rollout and hope everybody remembers it. We have to see how we're doing and then make those adjustments based on what you see.
It's almost like I got another Adam Bush proverb here. Plan to be in that moment.
Yeah. Yeah. We
You
don't
know,
sometimes. We react to it later, but I don't know. I'm telling you, Jim, we need to start the t-shirt list or something.
I
I
think
just to
we do.
get
Well,
something going.
when we were talking about this before, you also dropped and I wrote it down, plan to be versus wait and see.
Yeah.
I
Yep.
mean, think about that in the learning world. And we're talking about reteaching versus intentional interventions.
Yeah.
Reteaching
Absolutely.
is kind of like a wait and see, did it work? Whereas plan to be in that moment, plan to be, we want to see, is it and how do we know? And then what are we going to do about it? What did Nikki, Dr. Rorta say?
Measure, monitor, and adjust.
Measure, monitor, and adjust.
Measure, monitor, and adjust. I think those are 3
We're-
very strong
And I want
words
to
for me.
point out the last letter wasn't a C as in change. It was
That's right.
adjust.
Adjust.
So often we get worried about that. We're just talking about adjusting or evolving within
Yep.
that.
I
That
think
is
that's a big
it's
part
good.
for a shift. Yeah, I really do. I think that's one of those things where just shifting our mindset from checking off a box, and that sounds negative when I say it
Feels
that way,
good though.
but it
It
does.
feels
It
good.
feels good to get something done. Now I can move on to the next thing. Well, we need to plan on how we revisit that, how we come back to that. And that can really apply to pre-service. That can apply to my evaluations that I'm doing with teachers, how I'm going to come back to that. It's not just a one-time thing. If it's a one-time thing, we're not going to be successful. How do we measure? How do we monitor? And then how do we adjust?
So I think that's one thing that I want to make sure we're clear on in education is there's very few things that we can actually check off a list.
Mhm.
And the reason why that, sometimes that can be frustrating, especially for those who have that personality where they like to list, cross them off, erase them, do whatever, check,
Yep.
feels so
Yep.
good, rip out the page, throw it away, it feels so good. There's very few things that can happen like that in a system, and more so because we're humans working with humans.
Mhm.
And the complexity of what we're working with every single day can be a little tricky. So we need to lean in and understand this is a part of our world that we operate in. And knowing that, we got to be able to lean in. And I like how you're talking about plan to be in that moment. I had to write it down because I like it so much. Plan to be in that moment versus wait and see. And if we don't plan to be in that moment, we're going to create our own little undercurrent, which is going to drain our energy and it's going to drain the energy of others around us when we need to be saving and conserving that energy for our students.
Yep. Absolutely agree. Okay.
Hi, I'm Dr. Lisa Hill, a longtime educator of nearly 40 years as a teacher, counselor, professor, and vice principal, and I've seen just about everything public schools can throw at you. And now I'm sharing my tales on my comedy podcast, Vice Principal Unoffaced. It's where school leadership meets laugh out loud stories. From underwear required parent teacher conferences, yes, really, to staff lounge confessions and more, you won't believe. I'm telling it all with humor and a whole lot of heart. I also tackle the serious stuff too, like what schools really need to change and those behind-the-scenes moments no one talks about. So if you're ready to laugh, learn, and maybe even cry a little, but mostly laugh, join me and my 90-year-old mom, my unofficial co-host, on Vice Principal Unoffaced. New episodes drop bi-weekly on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcast fix. Trust me, this is one detention you'll actually look forward to.
Okay, Jim, we've done control, we've done shift. Now it's time for lead. And like I said, we got mailbag questions here. So we're going to go back to this one. I like this one too. I know, this is awesome. So I'm just going to read this one off. Ready? Hello, my name is Mia from Texas, and I'm a big fan of the show. That's awesome. Thanks, Mia. Thanks for reaching out. I am a first-year principal, and I'm struggling with a veteran teacher who's technically excellent, but consistently misses deadlines on lesson plans and report cards. How do I address this performance issue without demotivating them or creating a negative dynamic with the rest of the staff? Thanks for all you do. Now, before I let you talk about that, Jim, one thing I want to point out that I really liked in this question is she talks about addressing the issue, which is good because we do as leaders, we have to address those things, right? However, she talks about without demotivating them or creating a negative dynamic with the rest of the staff. I think that's huge. She's not saying, how do I fire this person? How do I get rid of this person? No, she's saying that this is somebody who's really, really good, technically excellent. How do I help lead them through an area that maybe isn't their strongest part? I think that's a great, great question out of Mia from Texas. So thanks, Mia, for that question.
What I also love about it is she's leaning into the human side of things first. And sometimes as principals, we hear, sometimes we get bad advice as young principals, and that is, well, it's time for you to have a tough conversation. We don't need to have tough conversations. We need to have clear conversations and direct conversations instead of spinning around. And I work with principals throughout the country, and one of the things that we look at is some of the undercurrents that are happening. People are watching how you address situations one way or the other, and how you're going to navigate whatever the situation is. And this one is really more of a district, probably expectations that go along with it. And I also know that people forget that principals are middle management. And so we have expectations that we have to uphold. You have to be here at a certain time. You got to leave at a certain time. This is the curriculum we're given. So principals are the middle management. So they come here and get this information. They come over here and have to make sure it happens. And I think sometimes our staff probably forgets that, and our parents as well with that. And I think our principals probably forget that. So props to reaching out and saying, hey, what are some ways to navigate this?
Yeah, I like that. You know, as you're talking there too, Jim, I was going to point out, most principals I talk to, when we talk about the why behind the work, why you really are doing what you're doing, it's rare that anybody says to me all of the logistical stuff that you have to do. Like, that's the stuff they really love to. Boy, I really like making a bell schedule. Man, I just can't wait to, ensure that I have duty coverage at the bus line. That people don't focus on that stuff. What they focus on, what they want to focus on, is exactly what Mia is asking about here. And that is growing your staff and be able to be that person that can be the thought leader, can be the instructional component for that person for their growth. And I think that part's really cool out of this.
I think the common theme that we brought up a lot with our control and shift is lead with clarity. So the first thing I am as a principal, I'm going to go back and say, am I being clear with all the expectations? Sometimes the answer is no on that. So then it's kind of on me, which is okay.
Yeah. And you
that
need
means
to
I
own
have to
that
grow.
part. You need to own it.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then the next part
That's
is back to the DISC profile. Am I speaking the right language to the people? So again, wanting to learn more about DISC, let me know. And then it becomes a conversation, and I probably would have this conversation in that teacher's room. It's their safe place and not alarming because I think in this case, Mia said, I believe in this. I just got to have these things done. And then the why behind it. Now, the why behind it has to be very clear. When I think about report cards, I'm thinking about there's parents that are wanting to have that. Correct. And I am certain with my involvement in Texas and everywhere else, that parents are going to talk as soon as those report cards come out. So if Adam Bush gets his report card for his kids before Jim Wichman does, I can guarantee Jim Wichman's going to be like, why? So one of the middle management tasks is making sure that we're consistent and we're providing a common experience for our families. So I'm going to invite in that conversation. I'm going to make sure that I bring up what happens behind the outside of just in this classroom, the ripple effect throughout with me, with the superintendent, Yeah. And if there's multiple sections on that, it doesn't feel good. And we don't need any educators getting kicked around for missing deadlines like that. When it becomes a lesson plan expectation and we're missing those deadlines, we're going to lean in and say, okay, this is the expectation and this is why it's there. And I need this to happen. So the minimum expectation is this. How can I help you make this happen?
Yeah. So then moving on to that piece of, hopefully through good coaching, we're not going to just give them the things they should do. I should pull off this guy's name, but a guy who just spoke at the School Administrators of Iowa conference. He was the keynote speaker. I think he talks about your advice monster and that we all jump to our advice monster just to give that versus having this opportunity for this staff member, like, hey, we have this expectation. That's not going to change. We know it is. It's a district expectation. We need to do it. We've talked about the why. And and allow that person to really come through or come to their realization of what is causing them not to be able to do that. Is it a skill deficit? Is it a tech skill deficit? Is there something? Is it a scheduling piece that I'm not giving them the opportunity? What is that piece? But it's going to have to come from them. I can't guess. I can't tell them. I'm going to have to help coach that out of them so they understand what that is. And then we can address what we come up with. But that coaching piece for me is going to be really huge out of the gate. You're going to have that conversation and help that person understand the why behind what's causing the rippling.
So the parts about having that conversation in their space is how I always start off with. And the reason is because I want to be very clear. My job is to support you and be the principal you need versus the best principal, whatever the best principal looks like and sounds like.
Yeah.
But be the principal they need. Then we're going to identify the resources, much like you just talked about. And then we're going to come up with some solutions. And that solution may not be coming from the principal. It may be coming from an instructional coach. It might be coming from a colleague, but we're going to partner up on how do we get this done. Would you say at the last session, plan to be in that moment? So we need to plan to be in that moment. So when we come up with like a plan, a structure plan of support for that staff member to get that accomplished, it might mean a colleague is going to partner up with them to make sure that they're getting them done at the same time or whatever the case is. I will say this though, be very clear on this, letting it go, people were going to notice. And then there's your undercurrent right there of it's going to chip away at your culture. And if we are serving the profession versus chasing the title, if we're serving the profession, having that conversation is going to be a positive because our families deserve it and our children deserve it. Absolutely. And I love the celebration that she's technically a great teacher or impactful teacher. I can't remember exactly what it said in the email.
Yeah.
But it really is, it's about our families deserve this. And while it might not be as important or seem like it's so important to one person, there's going to be someone else where it is important. And I think of Adam and Jim. When we start, we're going to be at 4:30. Adam's going to be there at 4:00. Jim's going to be there probably closer to 4:30-ish, maybe a couple minutes later. But I need to make sure that
I have a good story coming in, so I know that part's going to be there. We'll have some fun with it too. But you're exactly right, and that's that piece of we're all going to fit in this puzzle together as long as we have the same goal, and that's the part that I think I really think this is good of Mia. In fact, I think this is a really good trait here. If already as a first-year principal, it'd be really easy just to push that aside, not do anything with it.
Yep.
And I've heard that advice, like don't change. Yeah. Then all of a sudden, like you said, it's the undercurrent. It's the problem because you allowed the problem to persist, and then it makes it harder. It makes it harder to address that down the road. So I think that's really good that Mia's going to tackle that right out of the gates.
There's a teacher, real quickly, Tiffany. Tiffany, at the school I was at, Tiffany, I kind of had a conversation. It started with, I don't know how it really kind of got to the level, but the example was this. If Tiffany sets a meeting with me at 1:00, it's my job to be there at 1:00 or a couple minutes before. In my world, it's 12:58. I got plenty of time to get to Tiffany's room by 1:00. I step out and what's happening between me and Tiffany's room is I'm going to get stopped. Jim, do you have a minute? Jim, do you have a second? Jim, physically get stuck there because I don't know how to say no to that person because I feel horrible. And then I have Tiffany up there. She's there. I'll be up there in a little bit. It's her room. What I'm telling Tiffany is by not being there at 1:00 is that she's not as important as that person there.
Correct.
So I actually leaned into that with Tiffany and I said, okay, here's where I'm at. I get it. I need to be at your meeting at 1:00. I don't know what to say to this teacher. So this teacher and I sat down, we came up with responses I could have. And then we one-upped it. We went to the staff and said, okay, here's the scenario. I said, just like I shared with you. So I'm going to share these things. These are 3 options you have. You can text me, you can email me in the subject on it, or I can stop back and see you after my meeting with Tiffany. You get to choose. I'll do any of those. Now I feel good about there's closure there. I didn't hurt anybody's feelings. And most importantly, I got to Tiffany by 1 o'clock.
Yeah, I think that's good. You're not giving that half kind of paying attention, as you're walking away, and the person.
Good
So
point.
now you waste time getting to Tiffany, but they also didn't feel heard. And no,
Hmm.
that's a good point there too, Jim. That's a
Yeah.
good point. Mia, thank you for that question. That was a really, really good question. I wish you luck with that. The fact that you're willing to take on that challenge, I think, is really, really awesome. That's really good out of a first year principal.
If you mind, Adam, I'm gonna jump in. Hey, and then Mia or anybody else that has those, I encourage you to reach out directly too if you want, and say we
Yeah,
can have the quick phone call or Zoom, whatever the case is. Adam and I are more than willing to help support you in situations like that. And again, keep those questions coming in the mailbag. I think that's really been
absolutely.
that helps us give a purpose. I mean, our purpose is to support our educators in a
Yes.
meaningful and manageable and tangible way. If we're
Yes.
not hitting a mark, then we need to evolve as well with that. So, but Mia and Noah, thank you for reaching out.
All right, Jim, that is going to wrap us up today. Another episode of Control Shift Lead. Can you give us a quick recap on what we talked about today?
Certainly, when we started off, I don't think we intentionally planned it to be like this, but really there's a common theme throughout this, and it was lead with clarity. Start
Yeah,
with, are you making sure that you're clear? And then, and when it's not being received the way you were hoping it to be received, lean in, have those conversations. And what can we control? We can control by leaning in. So when we talk about, I think it was Noah,
hmm
having that conversation with someone to learn more about their why behind why they're doing it and kind of giving them the benefit of the doubt. We can control that. In the
Yes,
absence of doing that, we're going to fester and we're going to create intercurrents within the system and within our team. So we want to make sure that we are leaning in. As a shift, how would you say it? Plan to be in that moment. I love that
yeah.
phrase
Plan
there.
to be rather than wait and see. Yes.
And to
Yeah,
be versus wait and see. So we've got the big flash at the front, but the flash will fade if we're not intentional with that. So we have to plan to be in those moments about what does it look like specifically for everyone involved beyond the first week, 2 weeks of school.
absolutely.
And then finally with lead through support. I think a lot of people like think about evaluations or duties that we instantly jump to gotcha
Uh-huh.
versus growth. So we want to focus on the growth versus gotcha, sitting down with people. This is the why we have to do certain things. How can I help support you? Or what supports do you need? And I think when you're leading with compassion a little bit more, you might
Uh-huh.
find out our people have some really cool stories and a reason behind it. And then also understand that when people are struggling, we're going to figure out how to support them in the manner they need supported. And I think you kind of pointed this out earlier in our segment. We don't need to come in with answers all the time.
That's right.
Is
Yeah.
that kind of how you said that?
Yeah,
Or
and the permission to know that you don't have to have all the answers. And people don't always expect that. Sometimes the best answer is, I don't know, but I'm going to go find out and I'm going to work through this with you. And it's a
yeah,
great question. That's okay. Give
yeah.
yourself permission to do that. That's really
I had a
good.
teacher tell me that one time, Jim, I'm not expecting any answers. In fact, I don't want you to solve this. I just want to think out loud. I'm like, man, thank you. Cause I really was struggling with coming up with something. So, but when you said that, it took pressure off me, but also provided the clarity, leading with clarity.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All of this that you're talking about, this is the work we want to do. This is the bucket filling, fulfilling jobs that are fulfilling part of the job that we struggle with sometimes because all of the other stuff is there. We need to get to this stuff. And if we can really truly push ourselves and our leadership to this type of work, it's just going to keep us coming back for more every single day. That is really good stuff.
I would be interested in learning from other people about areas or examples about how they did lean in or someone lead into them for
Mhm.
support or solutions. And, or, how do you do more effectively, you do your job more effectively? I would be interested to hear those stories about how others have so that we can share them and others can kind of like work together on that.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, and that's a great point. So, Jim is saying that we would love to hear from you. In the show notes, you'll see emails for both Jim and myself if you want to reach out for a couple reasons. Not only to hear some of the good stuff that you got going on, because it's going on all over the place,
I'd love
but
to hear good
also
stuff.
absolutely. And I would also want to hear your questions. If nothing else, again, we might not have the answer, and that's okay. We've had enough time in this business to have had a chance to experience a lot of things, but we still don't know it all either. And we have our colleagues that we reach out to and that we work with, just like you do. So please reach out for that. We'll make sure that information's in the show notes so you can get to us at any point in time. And we'll bring back the mailbag for this next month as well. So if you have any other questions that you would love to hear your name on our show, or have a question that you'd love Jim and I to tackle on Control+Shift+Lead, we'd love to hear from you. So please send that out to us.
Perfect. Perfect.
Jim, what does this month look like for you? What's going to be the next few days?
So the next few days is kind of like a little break, but then I start into some virtual coaching. Next week was a lot of virtual coaching, actually. And then I headed back over to West Virginia to no offense to anybody else, but my favorite spot is Upshur County, because there's so many wonderful people that I've been there with for 3 years. Cool. I do love the people in that state.
That's cool.
Slide over to Arkansas for a little bit, slip up to Nebraska for a little bit, and then out to Virginia for a few days out there. But other than that, and then I end the month with, I'm excited about getting away with some friends old neighbors and my wife. We're going to slip away for a little mini vacation.
Oh, good for you. Good for you. I will be shocked if I make it out of central Iowa for the next month, but you never know. Things might happen, but I'm pretty sure that's where I'm going to be as we get rolling down this school year and get things going. It's fun to get it going. I mean, there's those moments where you're like, all right, let's just get everybody here and we'll get all the stuff settled in. And it's true. Every year, it's just great.
Well, one of these days I'm going to have to get over to Johnston and get in some of those buildings with you just to see some of the great things happening there and see how the principals there are planning to be in that moment. I got to get that phrase up. I'm embedding it in there. I'm still kind of proud of using the term power of simple. I mean,
that's right.
Can bring
I'll come up with another one for you for next month. I'll just keep feeding you stuff you can use. I love it.
I appreciate it.
Well, thank you, listeners. We appreciate you coming on with us again. And this month, if you want to, on YouTube, you can watch Jim and I if you dare. But you can see us, see Jim's excitement and energy, and see me wiggle around in my chair all the time. It's hard for me to sit still, but if that's something you're into, we're on YouTube as well, and we'll try to keep that going each month. Jim, thanks.
Listeners, like I say, no matter what, under any circumstance, are you ever alone? Adam and I are here always for you, but you also have other people. Education can be a lonely position, but only as lonely as you want it to be. And we ask that you reach out because we wholeheartedly believe that you do matter. So thanks for listening to us, and we look forward to the next episode.
You've been listening to Control+Shift+Lead, brought to you by Inspired Edification and AWB Education. We're glad you joined us for today's discussion on empowering school leadership. To dive deeper and explore more of Jim and Adam's work, find us at www.awbeducation.org. Thanks for listening. We look forward to connecting with you again soon.